Hello everybody, really nice to be here. Hope you're all okay. Here's a starter slide for you. I use this a lot as an introduction to inference, and I wanted just to give you a little chance to have a go. The first one's obviously easy, but have a go at number 2, and let's see who can A, be the first person to guess who did it, and 2, be the first person to spot the slight typo. Some people are saying they can't hear anything, so I hope that's not because of me. Oh, everybody's saying hello. Lovely. So, oh yeah, somebody's got it. Yes, yes, yes. Somebody's got it. It's the maid. And hello, Chris Curtis. I'm going to mention you later on. Okay, this is something I use as a bit of fun, actually, just as a kind of reading activity. So it's really for when you get back to school. It's not necessarily for now. But the second one is the meat of it, really. And what it does is to point out whether you're actually reading what you think is there or what is actually there. And it's actually, nobody's got it so far. Everybody's saying the maid because there's no post on Sunday. Absolutely wrong, actually. This is from a Victorian text. But anyway, it's the wife. The wife said she was sleeping. The butler was cleaning the closet. The cook was making breakfast. The maid was getting the mail. So, Jane got it, the wife, yeah. Okay, so and the third one isn't that hard actually. It's a fly, but just a little bit of fun for you there as a lesson starter. Okay, so welcome to weekly webinar number 3. It's the Focus on Language today, and as Monday is May the 4th be with you day, and I'm a bit of a Star Wars fan, I included some language there, and that actually, if you want to know, the language is Sith. Okay, so for all you Star Wars fans out there. I tried to get a Star Wars font, but I'm glad I didn't because actually I don't think this setup would have liked it anyway. Just to let you know that Adobe, the platform we're using, they have let us know actually that they're experiencing high volume. Obviously every online platform is at the moment. So if you do lose us, it probably isn't your equipment, it probably just is Adobe overload. And last week I did get kicked out actually, and if I do, then a lovely lady called Pam will take over. And there are actually 3 other Pearson members of staff standing by anyway. There's Pam, there's Liz, and there's Mike, so if you've got any problems. If you've got any questions that aren't applicable to everybody, put them in the Q&A box. Otherwise, please keep, please keep sending stuff in. And it was Jennifer has spotted that there was a mistake there. It says murdered and not murderer. Thanks, Jen. Okay, so let's look at what we're doing this week. Off-qual updates, there's a slide just to the updates we showed you a week ago, but I'm just going to put this slide on now. And there is a bulletin. I'm just going to hand over to Liz Slade, who's going to talk you through that. Okay, Liz?
Hiya, thanks Julie. Hi everyone. Just to bring this to your attention, so this communication was sent out to schools, to all of our centres on Tuesday evening, so I'm sure many of you will have seen it. It contains a lot of information about the key dates and the deadlines, and also about how to prepare to send your grades in and your rank orders for this summer's grading and how to submit those grades. For us in English, it does also mention the endorsement, the spoken language, and that will be submitted in the normal way on Edexcel Online. So whether you've completed the spoken language or not, you need to submit those grades as you would normally. Now, Claire Haviland, our subject advisor, has said that a lot of teachers are reporting having trouble with entering the grades. So Claire has kindly released a video to help you with that. So we'll send you the link round after this event so you can have a look at that, and that will help you if you are having any trouble with submitting those grades. Equally, if anyone's doing entry-level certificates, those grades as well, they get entered as they normally would. And there's other information on there about support for you. So if you haven't seen it, we will send round the slides afterwards, so you'll be able to click on and have a look at that. Okay, thanks, Julie.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz. Somebody has asked here if they can see the other webinars of this topic, so my other webinars. Now, I think we have a YouTube channel. I'm going to have to check that out. And find out whether they're going to be put on there, but they do get sent to you if you attended. So if you haven't had it, put your name in the Q&A section, and then Pam or Liz or somebody can get back to you and send those on. Okay, so this week we're going to do a quick check-in we're going to get an update and feedback from you, and then it's English online resources. I've just got a few to share with you, and then some new language ideas and resources for this week. Then, as last time, we're going to have a little tea break, time to discuss, share, inspire, hopefully, and a little preview of new resources that are coming up. Okay, so let's get started. This week it's Key Stage 3 focus as well to start with, and then a little bit on structure, some hopefully interesting language texts, and great, some shared resources from you. Next week I'm doing literature and hopefully a bit of a poetry focus. And a bit of a shout out, can we have more resources from you please, because we've got a couple to share this week, which is absolutely great. But more would be lovely. If you adapt any of mine, that would be really lovely to see as well. So let's look at the check-in then, and you're going to answer these questions. What's going well in terms of remote learning? It's really easy to be negative at the moment, and I'm well aware we're all struggling in various ways, but that, you know, there's got to be some good points. So what's going well for you? What's working? And slightly negative, what are you doing about children who fail to engage? I've got 2 Year 10 classes from the 2 teaching days I do a week, and I'm getting about 35 to 50%. I get more for the quizzes I do on Show My Homework and less actual sent-in work. But about 75% appear to be accessing it. So I'd just be interested to know how you're getting on and would like to share that. So if we could put the share boxes up now, please. Thank you. And I'll just give you a couple of minutes to go through those. Lovely things there I saw. I don't know if you want to add to it, Pam. You saw more, but the idea of independence, the idea of students in the shadows actually now becoming more independent is something wonderful.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments there. What I thought was interesting was, I can't remember who it was now because I was trying to type something at the same time in answering another question, but somebody was saying about the more mature learners who've now kind of got a voice in these meetings more, and they're you know, coming out with some excellent things. They're finding the Zoom meetings really good. A lot of people were saying, you know, those sort of meetings online.
Absolutely, but also the idea of more independence, some stunning creative writing I read, but also a couple of people have said working more closely with other staff, which I think is really interesting. We don't often get a chance, actually. We think we do, don't we, by sharing the odd moment over coffee, but it isn't actually perhaps as conducive to creative thinking.
Yeah, because you tend to sort of stay in your bubble, don't you, in your classroom, so the way that you're connecting with other teams, yeah, I think that's really good. Anyway, Julia, I'll let you carry on. I'll turn my mic off now.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. What people do about children who fail to engage, I appreciate some students don't have the facilities, parents work from home, etc. But one thing that has been suggested several times actually is providing printed and posted resources when no access is there. And that's something I wish actually we'd had a little bit more time for the lockdown, in advance of the lockdown, because I think it would have helped a lot of students to have resources sent actually to their home, or for them to be able to take it home from school. I finished on a Tuesday because I only work, or on a Wednesday because I only work 2 days a week, and I didn't see my students again, so it was difficult for me to send work home, but a couple of them have asked for it in writing, you know, on paper. I know I always prefer that. Okay, let's move on then from those. Sorry about that little absence there. I hope it's not going to happen again. Just ending on that, on the what is going well, it does seem that a lot of people are really pushing themselves. I had an email today from a student who really wants to get to the top grade in his literature, and he asked for some essays that he could mine for good techniques, etc., which was good. Okay, let's move on then and look at online resources. And this is where I am going to mention the marvellous Chris Curtis, who I know he can do a little wave to us here by saying hello. But I think he's actually with us today. Now, he has a great blog, and also he might be able to help me out and add points to this. And he's somebody I follow on Twitter, and he's written a brilliant book, actually, and I've just been reading it again. It's called How to Teach English, and it's got some fantastic ideas in it. But this is one that really resonated with me, actually, and it is this. Where have all the spotty pants gone? This was his latest blog. At the moment, I'm working with lots of students remotely to create a story, and along the way I have seen a common trend, a trend that we don't, I think, successfully address in the classroom. So I found a picture of some spotty pants, and then here is an extract that Chris put into his blog. The rain sank deeper into Sam's thin, spotty pants, his dad's grey work trousers and his mum's pastel yellow cardigan that were all on the wet washing line. I think that's a fantastic sentence, actually, in terms of reading skills, in terms of looking at it, the connotations as well of the thin, spotty pants, the grey work trousers, that just the colour grey, and that the mum has the pastel yellow cardigan. I think there's just loads going on there. I think you can write a whole story just from that sentence about his family. So I would certainly want to use that as a starter activity myself. On the back of that, I came up with some pantspiration here. And here's something I adapted from something I think that Phil Beadle did a long time ago. And it was just using basic mundane articles or interesting articles as a springboard for creative writing rather than using pictures. And I found actually it works better, if anything, because they weren't stuck into a box of the picture. And it widened things out a bit more. Okay, so somebody said I have Chris's book. It's Ace. So there you go, Chris. A couple of people said that. And Chris says they're not his pants. Okay, no, you're right, I hope. Okay, another one then. Thanks, Chris. And, oh, gone too far there. Just a reminder there, Lit Drive, I know we're language this week, but some people like to know Lit Drive are doing free CPD on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, and they're starting with Macbeth the Porter, which I thought was quite interesting for us EdXL people. Research Ed is another area, and I've put the links in there for you. They do lots of interesting CPD. There's a lot of people I know are using this as an opportunity to increase their subject knowledge or you know, just do some CPD while they're off, really, which I think is a nice idea. And here's another one, the Team English National Conference, which I presented at last year and I went to last year, and it was absolutely brilliant. It was planned obviously this year to be live, but now they're going online on Saturday, 4th of July, and there's some absolutely fantastic stuff there. It really is worth trying to get onto one of those. There's 35 speakers so far. It's absolutely fantastic. I got some great stuff last year, so give it a go. Something else I found online that I thought I wanted to have time to do, actually, Chronicles from the Classroom. I don't know about you, but teachers are always wanting to write something themselves, actually, rather than just writing lesson plans, and I've always wanted to. I don't even do a blog. I don't even have time or probably the technical expertise. But here, 500 words, a collection of narratives about your experiences in the classroom. So I thought this might be something you could certainly, if you've got a little bit of time, a nice writing opportunity there for you. And then I was looking for online resources for today, and I went onto the British Library, and I found this. This is, I think, the good old Mrs. Beaton's book of household management here, and I liked this, The Mistress. As with all commanders of an army, the leader of any enterprise needs a master, and in this case it's the mistress, the head of the household. So I thought that was an interesting text there for the 19th century, but also a resource, a good area of resource searching is the British Library. But this I absolutely loved. This is from the early 1900s, and this, I think I can make this bigger on your screen. I think somebody might tell me how in a minute, or you can make it bigger, but anyway. If when you've got a chance you read a bit about the working class tea, because it's an amazing, the tea of the working class is the most eccentric of meals and one of the greatest injuries a gourmet could possibly conceive. Okay, so it's absolutely fantastic there. And you've got the tea in private houses and the working class tea, and this really resonated with me and reminded me of of my sister going to tea at a girl's house when we were she was probably about 8 or 9. And she didn't eat anything because they offered her the jam and butter first, and the butter was little curls, and the jam came in a glass jar with a spoon, and she didn't know whether to spoon it out, lick it off the spoon, or spread it with a spoon, so she had her crumpet dry. So that kind of resonated with me. I loved it. Okay, so that was one little idea for you, the British Library. I thought you might be able to use that resource to make something clever with. And the final one, I don't know if anybody's had a look at this, the Oak National Academy. There's a lot about it on Twitter. It's worth having a look at. I found I couldn't actually get past the quiz when I had a go, but maybe that was because it was the early days and it was very, very busy. Okay, so that's worth looking at. So let's start our Key Stage 3 focus then. Okay, now I'm going to start with a whole lesson. And it's based on a very simple idea, a combination of two ideas, and that's the because, but, so writing idea, which I think comes from a book called The Writing Revolution, and I've used a lot. And also some lovely kind person who shared, probably via Twitter, and it was a long time ago, some opening line activities. So I hasten to add this first slide isn't all my own idea, but I thought I'd share it with you. So this is the first line of a book called Who Let the Gods Out? And it began on a Friday, as strange things often do. This particular Friday turned out to be stranger than most. And then what the students do is they complete 3 of the next sentence. So they have to add to that sentence with but, and, so, or because. Okay, and I usually do 3 out of the 4. And that works really well for developing. I also say that they have to add maybe a but and an and, okay, to develop their ideas. And they come up with great ideas. So this is before they've even seen the book. And then the next ones, if we change, so now thinking more deeply about language use, if we change strange to weird, and if we change Friday to Monday, would this first line be more or less intriguing? Okay, so this is an idea that I've adapted, I say, from somebody else who shared it with me, and I really wish, I tried on Twitter recently to find out who it was. I wish I could credit them, I can't, because I can't remember who it was, or I didn't know who it was. But so I can't claim credit for all of that. But the rest of it is mine. Now, then what I've done is I found the cover on the Amazon site and I've just copied it here, and they just make some basic simple predictions, so that's a very straightforward one. Very straightforward, and that's usually comes up with quite interesting ones. Then I take it a bit further and I try to move into more skills-based approach. So here we've got a slide. This was from the inside the book, which you can look at on Amazon. You can click the learn more. I haven't bought the book, and screen print the pages. That's how I do it. So there's a message there from the publisher, and I've put, this is a message from the company that publishes the book. Highlight 2 ideas in this message that would make you want to read the story and explain why. So this is getting into evaluation, actually. Somebody's saying they do a similar one with the man with 10 minutes to live was laughing. Oh, that does sound an interesting one, actually, yes. So yeah, this slide takes them into evaluation, actually, and I get some quite good responses to that, actually. That's been really successful. And then I move on to more.
Hello, Julie. I don't know if Julie's here. It says she's still here, but I can't hear her. I think she's frozen, so to speak. Anyway, let's have a look. Where were we? Yeah, so this is, as you can see, she's put here on the left-hand side, why is the writer repeated as normal? So it's really about thinking about choices of the words and the reasons there, and evaluating how effective they are, etc., etc. Let's have a look what she got here. What's the effective list of the times? Yeah, so really you're analysing, you know, structure, language, etc., etc. I know Julie said before that she's found that really good in lessons. Has anybody ever used that one at all? Anyone seen it before, or is that new to you? Let's have a look. What do you think? Have you used things like that before yourselves? Just okay, and then there's this one now. Julie was going to talk about the font, because the font in the original PowerPoint was very different to this, and you could read it really clearly. It was just a basic font, but for some reason today on this platform it's changed the font, so we're going to make sure next time that we stick to different fonts, obviously, because some of the fonts, you know what it's like, it doesn't like them and it changes them. Anyway, this is, let's have a look. What does it say here? These are the chapters. Headings. Yeah, okay, so this is the chapters on the right-hand side. So you put the chapters up of the novel that you're reading, and on the left-hand side you can see there's 4 different tasks. So one is choose one and write a short story using the heading as a title, put them in the order you think would make most sense, explain the order you've used. So it's kind of getting them to analyse again and explain their choices. Choose, what does that one say down there? Choose what you think would make an interesting story. Yeah, create a storyboard, the obvious create a storyboard. And then next to it says write 6 sentences of a story using the first 6 chapter titles, 1 in each sentence. So it just kind of like gets the class engaged into thinking more about, predicting maybe what will happen, or, just get them to think about what the story is going to be about. But again, it's a very useful task, and obviously you can use it with any novel, so it's really good. Yes, Samara, it is a good idea, I agree. And, oh, do they? That's interesting. Samara also put pupils seem to like choice tasks at the moment. That's interesting. So you find when you're doing homeschooling that if you give them lots of different options, they can sort of choose the tasks they want to do depending on, their ability or how they're feeling at that point, or what it is they want to do. Yeah, get them more engaged. Okay, that's interesting. Let's move on. Right. Yeah, you could do it with poem titles. That's a good point. Paulette, yeah. Okay, so this is one that Julie said she's used in school a few times. It was all the fault of the school rabbit. There's a bit of fun, but it also obviously there's. Oh, hello! I'm just going to talk to the rabbit. So
I have now set up on another laptop as well, so I don't know what happened. I don't know why it's happening. I'm sorry. I really apologise. I'll try and log in with the next computer. Maybe I need to get ready with 2 computers in future and have 2 logins.
Oh dear.
Sorry about that. Really sorry.
I've just got as far as showing this slide. So if you want to say how you use this, that'd be great. I'll just click off again.
My other one was this one. This was one of my favourites actually. That's been really successful. And it's this idea of using the chapter headings for a bit of fun. And I do apologise, I don't know if Pam mentioned, but the font, that is not the font I used. But this system doesn't like all the fonts that I had on my PowerPoint. So hopefully when you get it, it'll be slightly different and easier to read. But this was an idea I used for a scheme of work I did recently for Coram Boy, and it struck me as a good idea, and the students liked it. So put them in order. Which you think would make sense. Write 6 sentences of a story using the first 6 chapter titles in each sentence, and choose 6 that you think would make an interesting story and make a storyboard. So they do that before they actually see the story, and it's quite a good intro to any book actually. It's a really good idea. And it was the fault of the school rabbit. That's just a starter slide really. It was just a bit of fun. Which rabbit and why, and that's the opening of a short story of a Key Stage 3 novel as well, but I can't remember which one. I will find that out for you if you need to know it. And then the next one is this. This was they read it, and I've blanked out there in a sentence. I never liked Snowflake because when I was in Miss Bennett's class and trying to measure Snowflake's length in centimetres, Snowflake did something. Miss Bennett said it was an accident, but I think Snowflake did it on purpose. So I'd ask them what they think Snowflake did, which you can have a think about, and then rewrite the first paragraph using your idea instead of the idea, so I'd leave it blanked out. Think about when it would be most effective to use a short sentence, okay? So that, and I think it's the obvious, what Snowflake did, it's peed on me. Okay, so that's quite an interesting one to do. And then this one again is another evaluation idea. I got the start of the book. The trouble with grown-ups is they always think they're right. I think that might be, I'm not sure what book it is. I'll try and remember. One of the reviewers on Amazon wrote, I laughed, I cried, I held my breath. Which parts of the paragraph suggest that you would agree with the reviewer? And then a challenge here, because this is Key Stage 3, is would everybody agree? So is there somebody that wouldn't like the book, that wouldn't laugh, actually, or wouldn't cry, or wouldn't hold their breath? So that's worked well for me, actually, the intro to evaluation, because I think evaluation can be a massive mountain by the time they get to GCSE. So if they start with some of those skills in Key Stage 3, I think it makes it easier, because evaluation is really quite an accessible skill, I think. So they were the Key Stage 3 ideas. So somebody said they think it's a really good idea. And I like this idea as well. It might help getting pupils engaged in reading. It did. And actually, 2 of the books, I think I've done 7 now, opening titles, and for a nurture class in Year 8. And 2 boys have taken 2 of the books out and read them cover to cover. So that's been absolutely fantastic. We've actually had to add 2 to the library as well. So it's been brilliant. And I can share the titles next time if you need to know them, or I can get them sent out to you. But just have a look at any, Key Stage 3 novel, or any, in fact, it doesn't have to be Key Stage 3. One of my favourites that I have here is the opening line to one of my favourite books, which is I Capture the Castle, which is the line about sitting in the sink. So it's, I write this sitting in the kitchen sink. That is, my feet are in it, the rest of me is on the draining board, which I have padded with our dog's blanket and the tea cosy. That'd be interesting because not many students would know what a tea cosy is. So there you go. Okay, somebody says, definitely going to use these with my Year 7 creative writing work to encourage the use of different openings. Great. I've also used different openings. At the end of term, I used all the openings that we'd done, and they had to make them into a story, actually, using all the opening lines, which was great fun, actually. And yes, Pam's right. It is Rumble Star. Well done. Okay, so that's Key Stage 3. I think that's generated a lot of interest, which is great. So let's move on to GCSE Focus, hoping I keep you for longer than I did last time. Sticking with that because but so idea, which has worked wonderfully for me across all sorts of subjects, topics, and my font has gone funny there again, but I'll read it out to you. Now, this is the brilliant Caitlin Moran, and I thought it was very, very appropriate. She wrote an article last year, actually, about being homeschooled, because she was homeschooled. And it's a fabulous article, and it really gets students talking. The whole idea of education is and not going to school is interesting. And her language use is brilliant in this as well. You can't read it very well, but I will read you the things on the left-hand side. I start a sentence, Moran believes the current school system is broken. And then they have to do because. And for because, they have to tell me what her perspective is. So Moran believes the current school system is broken because it no longer prepares students for life in the modern world. And then the but, Moran believes the current school system is broken, but who might disagree? The government appear to think it works perfectly acceptably at the moment because they keep tweaking it. And then the so, Moran believes the current school system is broken, so she calls upon you to do something about it. So the because, what is her perspective, the but, who might disagree, and the so, what does she want readers to do. So I just found using these not just for a writing point of view, but for a reading point of view, really helpful for extending their ideas before they got into language and structure. And I found this really helped before that as a pre-analysis idea. So there was one for you. And then what I had a request for last week was for some more on structure. Oh yes, somebody's put it would also clarify understanding of the text. It does, and I'm a massive fan of actually understanding it. I can't stand feature spotting, and what I don't like is students don't read things. So I have, in order to test them on that, sometimes changed sentences in the middle into a different language. I could put them in Sith, actually, couldn't I, for May the 4th? But it was soul-destroying how few students put their hands up early on and said, it's not all in English, miss. Because what they were doing was just waiting to find a simile or a metaphor or a wretched forest. Okay, so this clarifies their understanding before they even start looking for something, and also takes the fear out of it. And yes, Nicola says it's a great idea to change bits of language. Yes, I did once when I was head of department do it for my my departmental review as well, and sent it to SLT, which was a bit naughty. Right. Structure then, beginnings and endings. Now, structure is quite a big area. If you're from AQA, it's probably a little bit bigger than it is with EdXL. But in terms of remote teaching, I don't think it's going to be something that you would be starting from scratch. But I just wanted to come up with some simple ideas that show you really that structure can be very straightforward. We don't need to look at massively complicated areas of the text. We can just look at things like beginnings and ends, and they're often neglected. So this is the beginning and the end of Caitlin Moran's article on homeschooling. And again, it doesn't like my font in the middle. What I did was to give that out, and they have to write the middle, and I've put a 3-paragraph minimum in it. So what that's doing is to make them think, is the tone at the end the same, and does it match the beginning? And when they have to write the middle, it makes them much more focused on what the beginning and the end actually does. So we're doing a big project at school that's been very successful so far. In order to improve our reading skills, we've actually used the students' own writing, and rather than writing from reading, we've done reading from writing. So in other words, they write their own work and they evaluate it. And it's really helped, actually. So here, once they've written their own middle of the article, they haven't seen the whole article yet. They would then evaluate it against the article itself and see they often actually find their structure better than the original, which is sometimes a bit worrying. But it's an interesting way into evaluation, and it's also an interesting way into structure and how that works. Why have they structured it differently to the way the writer has structured it? So that's a little idea. And then there's another one here, just an idea. I'm not a great fan of teaching, formats and genres in terms of if it's a review, it has to have a star rating, and if it's a review, it has to have this kind of language and whatever. I prefer it to be a little bit more who's the audience and why you're writing it, rather than strictly a strict tick list of conventions, really. Now, if you haven't seen it before, I'll show you the text this comes from later on. And just to help you out, it is actually a jacket potato. Comes from a review on TripAdvisor. But I gave this out to a top set, and it got some fantastic responses. So my jacket came and I descended with enthusiasm. And for homework, they had to do each paragraph. They had to do a paragraph of a review, a paragraph of an article, and a paragraph of an obituary. And some of the obituary ones, I hasten to add, they were some very bright students in the class, but they did some fantastic ideas. And what it did, because my jacket came and I descended with enthusiasm, is not something you'd read in an obituary, generally speaking, or perhaps an article. It really got them thinking about what an obituary was for and what an article was for. So I think it works in terms of extending their writing and also their reading, their understanding of it, because when they brought the paragraphs back in, they had to evaluate somebody else's. And it really helped in terms of how somebody had met the purpose. So that's an idea for you. Take a sentence that wouldn't normally come in that form and get them to write in that form using the sentence, and it produced some amazing ideas. And it got them away from that kind of, using a forest and ticking off the features as they use them. Another idea here on structure, and my structure wasn't very good then. I should have put that with the other structure one. Again, beginnings, middles, and ends. And this is from the same article. I would advise you never to go here, however hungry you are, however convenient it may seem. Okay, so that's the opening sentence. And then the final sentence, or the middle sentence actually, is my jacket came and I descended with enthusiasm. And they have to write the ending here. So one 4-sentence paragraph and one final minor sentence paragraph is what I've asked for, but obviously you can ask for whatever you want. And again, that was interesting, because how would you end something that starts and has that kind of middle like that? Okay, would you keep the tone? Would you change the tone? Where is the article going? Okay. All right, there. And now on to, so that was my structure done. Now I just got onto a bit of fun, really, because again, what I did see earlier, people talking about how they've got great things for creative writing, and I certainly think that's a really good area for students to work on, and not necessarily write a whole story, but actually just have fun. So this is something that I use in the classroom a lot, the whole idea of who eats from this fridge, okay? It's a little bit like that awful Through the Keyhole program, but I like it. I mean, I've had some great ideas. So they pick a fridge, and there's my ideas. You could ask for adjectives, you could ask for a name, you could ask for dialogue, you could ask for reactions. I've done all sorts of things, but I've said, here's your fridge, go away and create me the character, draw him, where would he go on holiday, what would he listen to, what would he watch, if he was an animal, what animal would he be, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's that idea, and that got some great character profiles, because I think this is a good opportunity now perhaps to work on small snippets of creative writing. Somebody's put lots of sound feedbacks. I hope you haven't lost the sound, have you? Characterization, here's another one that I've used, and you can put any picture you want in it, obviously, but again, what they tend to do, and this is sort of middle of the range writing, is you get quite a nice, once you've worked out plot, a nice, interesting plot, but the characters are boring. Okay, so these were questions that I asked them to answer, and the final one being, why should you be in my creative writing? So they create a character by answering questions, and I've had some really good character profiles from that as well, actually. They can answer it as themselves, or they can answer as the character in the picture. I better move on, actually. It's 20 to 5 already, isn't it? Now, just a final structure one, thinking about Spag. This is a story I wrote for a textbook, okay? So it's a very straightforward one. How would they Spag it? And I think, again, that's something that's quite interesting to work on remotely. I see on the comments that in terms of characterization, yes, Jennifer Webb has a fab character profile sheet in her new book. She does, yes, and her new book is amazing. By having a character you are comfortable with, it gets pupils to consider tone and style, which would suit their character. Brilliant, excellent. Okay. And there's the story with my punctuation in. So again, the idea of what punctuation would they use. And then moving on, because that's a fairly straightforward one, to my little treat of the week. I showed you something last week from my brilliant home management book. I have two of them, 2 volumes. Obviously, I have it by my bedside. I don't clean the fridge out without it. But here's a little classic. This is an absolute classic from it this week, and it's dating advice. Now, on the left-hand side there, you've got the 1950s dating advice, and on the right-hand side, you've got The Guardian from this year. Now, I picked out from the two texts the part about paying. Now, obviously, in the 1950s, I rather like it. Good manners require that the man should appear to the world as the protector and provider of the lady. Okay? Of course, you can thank him prettily for his hospitality and say how much you enjoyed your lunch or dinner, even if he's your husband. I love that. So if your husband pays, you have to thank him. I love that. Whereas obviously the modern one, it's about how to make sure you get a second one. And again, I think there's all sorts of connotations going on there. Okay. Now, I want to explain why there is a bishop's hat in the top left, and it's because it comes from a page of etiquette, and next to it is an article about how to address a bishop. So should anybody need to address a bishop or write them a letter, please do let me know, because I can send you the page. In fact, I need at some point to share the other chapters, because if you need any tips on how to look after your household goat, that's in the book as well. So just let me know. I can help out. And here we go with the activities I thought of. Okay. Mind the vocabulary is one I'm doing quite often now. So look up unfamiliar words and then practice using them. Write the whole article. Use it as use the Guardian article for a short story. Okay. So yeah, I love these. I'm just going to keep on giving you more and more from this book because I think it's brilliant. And here, just in case you wanted to see it, is the whole it's an etiquette, how to behave if there's 2 of you in a restaurant. Okay, so you can read the whole article there that I scanned in for you. Okay, so that's your little treat of the week. And then finally, getting back to more serious matters, and that is the jacket potato. My next jacket came and I descended with enthusiasm review that I have used several times before. But what I've done is last week I did a model paragraph activity for literature and people loved it. So I thought I'd use it again for a model paragraph. So this is one actually I've adapted from a student answer. And it was the language and structure question, okay, on paper 2. Oh, the font is awful. Hopefully when you get sent it, the font will be okay. I won't use that font again because it doesn't match the Adobe system. I'm really sorry. I wouldn't use that font because it's hideously pretentious, isn't it? So basically the idea is the student has a model paragraph and they have to annotate it according to the exam criteria or whatever it is you want, the mark scheme around the side. And they then use that as the model for their own paragraph that they write the next one of, and I've had great success with this. They stick it in their books. I know model paragraphs are nothing normally new, nothing new at all, but I just thought this would be out of interest. I haven't used it much with language before, but now I'm going to, because it works so well with literature. Okay, so that was just one there. And people are saying they'd use that A-level language change. Yes, the 1950s book would be brilliant for that, and several of my colleagues have used pages from it. Okay, so any ideas to share? If you've got them, and we have got a couple, I'm going to share them in a minute after we've had a little tea break. We'll end with somebody's contributions. If you send them to us at the Full English there's the email address. We'll make them available to all who've signed up today. So please, 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 if you adapt something of mine, as somebody has, and I'll show you later, please send it in. Let's all share what we've got. Let's not reinvent the wheel. I just read that actually in Mr. Curtis's book, and that's what we shouldn't be doing. So anything you've seen that you like, adapt, share. Anything you've got that you think people would like, please share. Don't be shy. And now it's time for our tea break, so we're going to break out into different groups. If you haven't been with us before, the idea is that in your group you'll have a Pearson person and you will obviously just share any ideas. So the idea is that you are going to share, inspire, or just say hello basically, okay? So let's go, let's break out. Thank you.
And we're back in the room.
We're back in the room. Thank you very much.
Couldn't resist it.
No problem. No problem. Okay, everybody, hopefully okay. That was really interesting. Thanks ever so much to my group. A discussion there about, we do share afterwards, by the way, as Pearson's people will get together and discuss and talk about what you were all talking about, so we can share for next time. A couple of people had adapted things I shared last week, which was great. Somebody suggested as another way of understanding a text before moving into language or anything was to draw pictures next to it. I loved that idea. I thought that was great. Somebody was producing a guide too for different eras, which I think is a lovely idea actually, like a guide to the 1920s, etc. If you need my 1950s book, please shout, it's there. Some people were talking about filming, whether they'd filmed lessons, and I think that's an interesting area. Some people haven't because of safeguarding, whether they've actually been live to students. I would love to. My school's not doing it. But I did yesterday record over a PowerPoint for Pearson's actually, for a resource that's going to be available next week. And I think I might do that because I think that would be a nice idea for them to hear my voice. Or perhaps it's just me that wants them to hear my voice. But anyway, so yeah, we've got a couple of ideas there that we will share next week. Lovely, thanks very much. So let's try and make sure we're finished before Boris is on, because he's back today. So let's look at our shared resources then. So this was Sarah, I think. Yep. And she shared a marking feedback form for Romeo and Juliet, and you'll get that because you'll get the PowerPoint. And there's a lovely one there for Christmas Carol. And then she was kind enough to share one of the resources I shared last week. She has adapted. So this was one I did last week, and she has changed the text in the middle to the woman in white. And apparently it worked really well. So there you go. And a couple of people have come back to me and said that they had much deeper responses as a result of using this format, and it works equally well for language as it does for literature. It's nothing new, it just looks a bit more fun, and you know, just gets them thinking before they actually write in detail. Okay, so that was the shared ideas. I think we're nearly at the end now. And I've only got kicked out twice, which is excellent. Somebody said that they've done voiceover for PowerPoints with great success for those who can't attend virtual lessons, which is fab. Yeah. Somebody says they can't see the slides. I don't know whether that's back now. There's your address again. Please send any ideas you've got in. Please, please, please. Oh, I've dropped my paper copy on the floor. Sorry. Very technically able here, aren't I? Next week, 7th of May is literature. Any suggestions you've got, please send them into the full English. We probably haven't got time now, but if you've got any on the screen. Oh, National Theatre's live this evening with Frankenstein, which is Cumberpatch and somebody else alternate the roles, don't they? It's 7 p.m. And Chris Curtis says it's really easy to turn a PowerPoint into a video, export rather than save. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good idea. Thank you. Just very quickly, what more we can do to help something that's coming is knowledge organisers for A Christmas Carol and Inspector Calls, and they are already live on our website now. So if you want to click that link when you get the PowerPoint, you'll get an A3 organiser, an A3 blank organiser and an A4 PowerPoint with them on. So they're available for you now. And the recorded lessons for Inspector Calls, poetry, Jekyll and Hyde and A Christmas Carol should be available next week. So I'll tell you about those next week. There's the other link again to the secondary resources, And then I've jazzed Claire up a bit actually and given her kind of a new design. I found out how to do designs in my PowerPoint. So there you go. Okay, so we've got about 4 minutes left. I don't know if anybody wanted to add anything or end with anything. You do get a feedback slide at the end, and we'd really love you to feedback. Oh, one more thing, yeah, if you're not with us and you want to be, okay, if you follow this link, you get a lovely video of somebody who did switch to us recently. I'm not doing a sales pitch because this isn't the place for it, but if you did want to find out what it's like with Edexcel, then you can follow that link and find out why somebody swapped. So I just thought I'd add that in. And then we end on the feedback, which you will get to fill in. But if anything else you want for next week, please do send the email in. I was going to say answers on a postcard, please, because I've always wanted to say that on television, but I don't know that many of you would get that or even indeed know what a postcard is. So please do the poll at the end. Pam says, there's lots of free resources on the National Theatre's website. There is, yes. And Helen says, thank you all. All right. Great, thank you. And I'll see you next week for literature. Thanks, bye.